All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Capsule. I'm here with two very special guests that I'm excited to speak to. I have Brooke Milliner in the house and Hetty Blades in the house. So we have a special project to talk about. The wonderful Brooke Milliner, if you haven't watched his old episode of the podcast, go back about 3 years and there is a great episode. You're still one of the most listened to episodes of, definitely on the audio. I think you're still in the top 10, even though it's been 3-4 years. Because the people love to hear Brooke speak.
Hear me chat rubbish.
Yeah. And he's going to be talking all about the popping scene today. No, I'm joking. So today what we're discussing, among other things, is a film that Brooke created along with a team of amazing people, and that Hetty did research on and is still doing research on. So we're going to talk a bit more about the film, but one thing to say is that Brooke said to me before the podcast, he said, whatever you do, don't show the film. Like, it's top secret. We can't show the film. And I said, I'm going to show it. And he said, no, if you show it, I'm going to be really mad at you. But guys, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show it. And there's nothing Brooke can do. He wants to get up and fight me, but he can't do it, right? Because I'm bigger and stronger than him. So we're going to put the film at the end of this podcast, the premiere of Brooke's film. And look, he's so angry at me, but we're going to do it anyway. I'm sorry, guys. So go, if you watch all the way to the end of this, we're going to talk about the film. We're going to talk about the research. And then at the very end, you're going to get the first premiere of Brooke's film. Nowhere else but here on The Capsule, an exclusive. And yeah, thank you guys for choosing to do it here.
Boom, we're here.
Boom. That was all a joke, by the way, except for the part about the film. It's going to be at the end. So Brooke, Hetty, hi, nice to have you here. Can you first tell me the concept of the film, where it came from, how your research goes together with Brooke's creative vision, and how it all kind of came together, basically?
You want to go?
After you.
After me. So Robert Hilton.
Yep.
Salute.
Legend.
He sent me a link to the project. So that's how I found out about it.
It was a call out.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've got a bunch of ideas, like I'm sure most creatives
kind of
do.
like ready to go.
Yeah. So, and you know, there was certain guidelines, and I had an idea that I thought would fit, which was just like bare bones at the time, obviously.
Yeah.
And then, from there, thought of the idea, pitched it, they selected us.
Sick.
And then, went from there.
Nice. And I don't know who's more appropriate to talk about it, but like, what was the call out for, and kind of what were they asking for, basically?
Yeah, should I talk a bit about that? So it's part of a larger research project called Moving Online, which is funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council. And one kind of strand of that work is that we commissioned 3 new online pieces.
Oh, amazing.
And just casting my mind back, seems a while ago now that we sort of put the call out, but we were looking really specifically for people who were wanting to do kind of really original, different things online, looking across different genres, and interested in hearing from different people about kind of unique or original ways of making online work and sharing online work. So that was our kind of the kind of cool focus was on that, but we were also really interested in working with artists who were up for opening up their choreographic process, because one of the things that we were interested in doing in the project is observing making processes specifically oriented towards online work. And that was kind of also part of the call, as artists that were up for us coming in as researchers and looking in on the making process.
Okay. So, and you didn't have any problem with people coming in? You're not like precious about that type of thing?
No, I'm not. I was saying, I think I said to you a couple of times, like, you can come in, but it's going to be a bit boring, because sometimes you just like, you're not really, you kind of just want to be in the space and think a lot of the time. Well, that's how I am anyway. So sometimes I'm not really moving, and I'm not really creating a piece. It's just workshopping ideas. So it can be boring, but Hetty wanted to see that. So.
No, I think it's like, I mean, even I've had this with like when I have asked to like shadow people, or like people have asked to shadow me, it's like sometimes you forget that it's like that is like even you sitting in the space thinking like me like shadowing you or working with you as an assistant or something, I might be like, oh, Like he can just do that. Like I would feel the pressure like, oh, I've got to like do something or be active, but it's like, oh, it's okay to, you know, there is still things that are valid even if you think they're boring. I'm sure you can speak on that are like, there's probably still a lot to observe even if you don't think there is. Also because you're so used to your process. You're like, oh yeah, I do this all the time, but there's probably a lot to be seen from that, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think so in the project more broadly, we're looking at how ownership kind of functions in online work, and also some kind of philosophical questions about what kind of thing is a dance online and how does it exist and how does it come into existence. So in particular, these kinds of questions about how something begins to exist is really interesting for me in terms of watching people's process. And so even the moments where people are kind of thinking through or not maybe doing loads of movement, like understanding a bit about how these kinds of ideas start to form into something that becomes a dance is really interesting to me. So yeah, I definitely, it was great.
Because I guess that's something we would also take for granted. It's like these steps in between thinking and then getting up to move. There's a lot that happens probably in between that. So can you talk a little bit about, Hetty, can you talk a little bit about kind of your job and like the role that you were in that led you to this project?
Yeah, for sure. So I work in the Centre for Dance Research at Coventry University.
Okay.
And so that's a collection of researchers, all of whom are focused from different perspectives on dance in some way. And I've been there, I actually was there as a student and did a PhD there. And then I started there as a researcher in 2015. So I've been there one way or another for quite a while. And I've been interested in the kind of philosophical questions to do with dance and technology, in particular kind of recording technology, for quite a long time. And that's kind of evolved as the online world's evolved and as the technology's kind of evolved. So yeah, the landscape keeps kind of moving and that really maintains my interest, I guess. But part of my role is to develop projects and hopefully get funding to do projects. So yeah, I worked on this bid for quite a long time and submitted it, I think, in 21.
So the whole project was kind of your, like you were at the inception of the whole call out and the funding for that?
Yeah, so the whole research project is a fellowship scheme.
Okay.
So it was kind of awarded to me as the main researcher, but I do work, really important to mention that I work closely with some colleagues. Well, there's quite a few people involved in the project in one way or another, but two colleagues in particular, Lily Hayward-Smith and Vip Artpradid, also joined me as researchers on the project. So it's not just me anymore, but it sort of began as, a project that I kind of created and bid for money to get, and was very lucky to get the money from the Arts and Humanities Research Council. So yeah, and I've been really, it's been great to be engaging with these commissions and been really happy with the way that this kind of strand of the research has unfolded, because it's just been, really rich terrain for us to look at.
And what sort of things are you, when you say, kind of like dance online or the way dance is I guess, put online, what sort of things have you been looking into? What sort of things have you found? Obviously, you can't tell us your whole research right now, but like what things have you found or what's of interest? Like in my head, I'm thinking like, is it the social media transmission of things? Is it like, I don't know, the dance film type of thing and how dance changes from the stage to the film? Like what are your, the strongest areas of interest with this?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I feel as though it's kind of almost always evolving.
Yeah.
I think I began writing the project all that time ago, thinking mostly about these kinds of distinctions that are drawn between like a recording or a trailer or a live stream or a screen dance work, and how particularly kind of during the pandemic, what these things are kind of became really muddled. And that's the kind of, so I was interested in like how these distinctions between types of online work are kind of a bit complicated by emerging forms. And I still definitely am interested in that. I think what has come more into my work since the project started is the social media space, and looking more at the kinds of conversations around TikTok and things, and really interested in the way that people use Instagram. So I've definitely become kind of more aware of social media practices, I guess, through the project. But I mean, dance online is such a broad, I mean, even, you know, things on TV are now online. So like, it is a bit hard not to kind of feel like it's everything and try and draw parameters around it. But I think having these commissions has been really helpful in that sense, in that we've got these really clear case studies that we're interrogating. And of course, related to that is how things are shared on social media in relation to the commission. So it sort of crosses different areas and different platforms and different domains. But it's helpful for having these kind of central cases because it is such a broad area, dance online.
And please excuse my ignorance with, because a lot of this academic stuff is not my forte, saying that I teach at university. But what I mean is, like, so when I think of research for a project, right, like a dance project, we do like research and development, as in we'll go to the studio 2-3 weeks, whatever, play with some ideas. But the end, there is always like kind of, even if there isn't an end product, like we're not in creation, we're still in research and development. We know we're working towards looking for material that we're going to put into a performance piece, right? So with this kind of like academic research, and I would assume it's maybe not exactly the same thing, in the sense of like, and I'm also speaking on behalf of like people that maybe don't understand at all these type of practices, but like if you're researching these things and you're doing things like these 3 films and other projects that you might have done to work on this research, what happens? Like, how does this work? Like, so you look at these things, you, I guess, take notes, like make observations, and then what happens with all of that work, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something we're kind of right in the middle of, which is that we have, because we also did loads of interviews, so we have quite a lot of data, like our observation notes, the interviews that we've done, and we're starting to kind of theme those, so go through and identify like where certain themes arise, and with the observations we developed a kind of table, and we have tried to categorize our notes into kind of the questions that we came with. So for example, one question was like, how are choreographic decisions made? And so then notes that we find that kind of relate to that question go into that part of the table. So it's all a kind of process of us trying to kind of tease out, I guess, like core themes, core ideas that emerge from the information that we've gathered. Right. And with that, we will do various things. I mean, we've already started to talk a bit about the work at kind of conferences and different kind of events.
Like sharing your findings kind of thing?
Yeah, sharing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the findings I feel like are still really emerging, but like sharing what we've done and like where we're up to with the thinking. And then also we'll write about it. So we'll write articles. I'm working on a book project that draws on some of the work that we've done in the fellowship. So it'll be written outputs, and we'll also do some articles probably for some kind of dance sector magazines as well. So hopefully the findings will reach different audiences. We're also working on some kind of, I don't quite know what to call them because I feel like guidelines is too didactic, but some kind of prompts that like might be useful for people when they're like starting to share work online or sharing in different contexts, like things that might be useful to think about around like ownership, agreements, things like that. So there's also this more kind of, I guess, sector focused way of sharing some of the things that have come up in research. So
it's kind of like, you'll take those things right, or like create different outputs, as you said, to help future maybe choreographers or students that are learning to choreograph or dance and that type of thing. Yeah, that's definitely the aim. So apart from the kind of academic work, like the writing in academic contexts, this kind of set of prompts or guidelines is really designed to kind of support people to think through some of the issues that might arise around ownership. Or can you define a little bit more what you mean by like ownership? And yeah. I know it's such a kind of like broad term and sort of like means lots of different things. Because I think I had a quick chat with Emily, and I think this is also really interesting, this side of it. Yeah, so in this project, we're looking, I mean, ownership is, again, another kind of really broad area, but we're looking to some extent at legal frameworks for ownership, so intellectual property law and copyright, but from a kind of theoretical perspective. So we're not doing kind of legal research exactly, but we're interested in like how some of the philosophical questions, like what kind of thing is this, kind of show up in
law. But we're also, and more really our focus is on the kind of social interactions, negotiations, agreements that shape ownership within dance communities and what happens when dance moves outside of those communities. One example of that perhaps is the importance of acknowledgement, giving credit, and that this is a kind of non-legal action often, but a strong expectation in terms of like the relational, the way that ownership like works in relation between people.
Yeah.
So that's more what we've been looking at. Like, how is it that ownership, like what are people's expectations? What are they willing to give away? What do they expect, if anything, in return? For example, acknowledgement. And just looking kind of more closely at those kinds of practices, I guess, in different contexts.
Okay, and Brooke, I definitely want to get onto your thoughts on the film, but while we're on this topic, what are your thoughts on the ownership thing? Because my question or issue, I guess, is the balance between ownership, copyright, people not stealing each other's work. Even in battles, we don't like biting and stuff like that. But then at the same time, there's certain like you can't bite a walkout in popping. It's not bite. Do you know what I mean? Or you can't, if you're influenced by something, then half the time people are like, oh, you stole the thing. But then the other half are like, oh, it's a super clever reference. Or like, you know what I mean? Like where these things lie. Like, do you have any opinions on kind of this ownership or what makes it okay or makes it not okay, etc.? Especially in the choreographic landscape.
I mean, I think that you can bite, but at the same time, it's like, how does it feel for you? Like, can you look at yourself and say, I didn't bite that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we're all inspired by each other highly. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, I know me and you, we always talk about Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
But like his new album,
yeah,
like there's 2 songs that are like, they're not bites, but because he gives the props. There's,
which ones?
Nas One Mic.
Yeah.
His track is called,
I did hear that
I can't remember what his one
yeah.
is called. And then his track is called Gloria, which is another Nas track where he's talking from the perspective of his pen.
Right, yeah.
And Nas talks about being the perspective of his gun.
Yes, right.
So he's clearly copied it. And with the One Mic one, even the music is similar.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's not a bite.
And when it's Kendrick Lamar, we give that artistic license. We're like, oh, he's not stealing, he's referencing. Like, because he's Kendrick Lamar, how could he? A lot of people will.
Yeah, exactly. But like, exactly. You know what I mean? He's not hiding the fact. I don't know if he gave Nas some coins. I don't know how it works exactly.
Yeah.
But when your work feels like someone else's and you're not acknowledging it, that's not right for me. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, we got our own. When I teach my students, I tell them the people that have grew up listening to hip hop, we've been learning hip hop before we started dancing because of the MCs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They talk how we move.
Yeah,
and the top dogs now, they talk to us about ownership. You know what I mean? Jay-Z, for instance, he's been saying it for years. You know what I mean? Prince has been saying it. Michael Jackson's been saying it. It's the same for us. And I would say dance in the arts, dancers, we're kind of at the bottom of the barrel. You know what I mean? With things like this, where we're like, you know, the actors and the musicians, they're higher up than us. So we need to take control as much as possible.
Do you think it's something that should be? Because I saw an article, and this is maybe a question for both of you, but I saw an article that was saying, it was talking about copywriting choreography, like legally being able to submit, I guess whatever the thing is you'd submit to have your choreography be like your thing. There was like some stipulations on it. There had to be, it can't be, you know, one move. It has to be a sequence of moves. It has to be identifiable, etc. And I don't know, without doing more research, I don't know that I immediately agree with it, because a lot of dancers were sharing it like, goddamn right. But I was a bit like, this feels like it could be a slippery slope, right? In the sense of, it's fine when it's us doing it within our circles, and it's fine when we're the ones being stolen from, for example. No, when we're the ones doing the stealing, right? I think is what I'm trying to say. So, for example, if let's say you do something that's like referencing an old, I don't know, like Jabberwocky's piece or something, and the point is to reference it, and that's like a tribute to them, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, cool, because you don't feel, you give credit, blah blah blah. But if there's like a legal thing on this, right, for them to first of all say you're not allowed to reference, and second of all, if we look only first of all at what you've referenced, the original thing, and their legal right to sue you, etc., for that. But then we start to go down the slippery slope of, but wait, that walkout you did came from the Electric Boogaloos. Wait, that way of hitting came from that popper over there who did it the first time. And now it's like, is there a slippery slope where it's like this thing that is essentially, in theory, is a good thing, leads us to a lot of bad things. And then it could be people trying to sue because they're like of ill intent, if you know what I mean. They know that a walkout is social, it's been passed down, etc. But they're like, oh, actually now we represent the Boogaloos and we want to make money. And even the Boogaloos might be like, no. But they're like, oh, but legally we have the right to, etc. Do you see what I mean about, is there a slippery slope, or am I way off on this?
I mean, I definitely don't have the answer, but I guess without having much thought on this, it would be sequences and like as one move. Because if you're you've just started dancing and you don't have internet, you can do a walkout. Mm-hmm. It's not like one person can make up a walkout, and it's just a walk really with a bit of flavor. You know what I mean? So more than one person can make up the same move. Sure. I guess it would be a length of time. Like, are you copying the same thing for 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is?
The minimum
know what I mean?
Time, yeah.
But yeah, I definitely don't have the answers. But in terms of like, the community, the underground, I like to speak for us a lot. It's like you can feel it. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
In terms of, when we're going higher up, it's different, and I mean, conversations need to be had. For sure, because we need to own our stuff.
Because even the example of, on Fortnite, they did like a lot of like social dances. They took them and put them on Fortnite and changed the names and didn't credit any or pay any of the existing creators, right? And it's like, if you think of the like, what's this thing, or like but like all these, like, it's just one move. Like that is like one thing, but someone did create that on TikTok. And then Fortnite are making all this money. People are paying to download, I think, these dances or whatever. And it's like, then you know what I mean? Then do we say, okay, now it only has to be one move? It's like, it's so difficult to hold on to these things, no?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think in US copyright law, which is a bit slightly different, I think, to UK copyright law, but there is this kind of distinction in the convention between choreographic works and then social dances and simple routines. So that's the kind of language they use to draw this distinction. And there's loads and loads of writing about this and the kinds of problematics of what that means in terms of which dances are protected and which dancers can get protection for their work. And this is something that also interests us in the project in terms of the kind of philosophical question of like, well, what constitutes a work? Like, how do we decide what is and isn't a choreographic work as opposed to a routine or a step, So, I think they do have this distinction to try and prevent this idea that like a single move can be tightly controlled, but it's not without kind of complication and some problems. I think in the UK, it's also, as far as I understand it, choreographic works that are protected. But I think the kind of rules here are that it needs to be original, repeatable and fixed. So this thing about originality, it just made me think in terms of what you were saying is like, I don't know if there is this very kind of commonly used move that you'd be able to claim originality, but as soon as it's kind of integrated into a longer kind of sequence, or you've put your own particular like style or changed it in some ways, and I guess you could claim that it is copyrightable.
Is it a good analogy to say, like, words can't be copywritten, but a poem might be able to be? Like, everybody uses all of the words in a poem, but nobody uses them in that order to say that thing.
Yeah.
Is it kind of that?
I think that's a really interesting analogy. Yeah, no, I think that is really makes a lot of sense, and it's like the building blocks themselves. But I guess then a question is like, well, at what point is it a poem?
Like 3 words.
If I say I like food, like I could say it's a poem or not, like I don't. So then there's still this kind of like tension between like when did the building blocks become like something that is copyrightable? But I think that is a really interesting analogy.
Yeah, because then it's like, let's say you did premiere a work and it was 3, because there's a really minimalist choreographers as well. So you could have a whole, a poem where the whole poem is I like food, and we were like, oh, Hetty Blades, that poem is amazing, I've got it on my wall, whatever, and it's like famously your poem. But then someone else could be like, yeah, here's my new poem, I like food. You can't copyright I like food, everyone says it. And it's like, but we know it's her poem. So it's like, then how would you even begin to like argue? I guess you would have to, it is the thing that is like, if it comes to like, or the benefit of it being copywritten is that if it comes to a court and you are actually in court arguing this, or in legal proceedings, that you would supply the evidence to say, yes, everybody has poems saying I like food, or everyone uses the words I like food, but there's evidence to say I was the first one to have it in a gallery and that type of thing.
Yeah, I think that, so as I understand it, and I could be wrong about this, it might have changed, but that we haven't actually had dance copyright cases in the UK. So I don't think there's much kind of precedent for how that might play out in UK copyright law, although there's lots of work thinking it through.
Yeah, right.
There have been cases in the US, and I think it comes down to this idea of substantial similarity. So I think in theory, if it was exactly the same, you could say, well, that's a copyright infringement. But I think you'd have to demonstrate that the person had like seen the original poem some way, or like that it's highly feasible. I could be slightly wrong about this, but this is from memory. So that it's more than a coincidence, basically.
Yeah, because I guess, especially with like, I mean, we have this in dance a lot of times as well, but like two people can have the same thought. Like 2 people can think, oh, it would look cool if I did this. And it's easy to point and go, you stole my thing. But if they can, I mean, how do you prove you never saw something? You can prove that someone did see something, but like if you didn't see the original, it's like I just came up with the idea, which just happened to look similar, which then I guess is difficult, no?
Yeah, and I think with something as kind of with something like I like food, the chances are that someone else could also think of it, and I guess maybe that's where like originality comes into play to some extent, in that like it needs to be demonstrable that you'd kind of had this very original take on it. I mean,
I'm thinking also of seeing the banana taped to the wall, the art exhibition. It's like, what's to stop me from doing or like, if I did do that, could that person say you stole my, because technically I did. It's such a world famous thing that he's done that, but it's just a banana taped to a wall. So it's not even could it, it's should he be allowed to sue me, even if I did copy it? Because it's like, yeah, I guess that's what I find interesting. Thoughts?
It's tricky, man, because it's something so simple like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know the rules on it. But if you're copyrighting it, then you can't do it. You need to make that a blue banana, or you need to make that a pear or something. You know what I mean?
And I think the other thing that I would maybe find interesting, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this, is like, is there also with things that are like now, go into the realm of like legality and formalities, I guess, is there something that is at odds with stuff like hip hop culture, which is a lot of people that are either young kids, especially people from like where these dances started in like kind of underprivileged areas and stuff like that. What's to stop someone who's a bit more affluent, for example, going in, I'm not talking about now, but like in the 80s in the Bronx and being like, oh, this thing that the kids are doing, spinning on their backs, that looks cool, copywritten it. And then Rocksteady come out and they're like, nope, pay me. And it is just some wealthy businessman. Do you know what I mean? It's like, does it does it not invite, but does it allow for like people to take advantage of artists that are, because often we have artists that are at the forefront of creativity, but not at the forefront of like social wealth or any of these type of things that would enable them to even not even understand the legal proceedings, let alone actually go and copyright things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think because in the UK, dance works, noting the kind of complexities of that idea, are actually automatically protected by copyright. So there's not, in the US, there's this process where you have to register them, but here they are.
What qualifies that? That's the question. Right.
But so then we have to think about why there's not more cases. But I think exactly as you're saying, there's huge amounts of money involved, and to challenge someone for stealing your moves or whatever is going to be a real undertaking that's going to cost money and may or may not work. So I think I think you're exactly right that in trying to use copyright more, that could be a really good way for artists to kind of make more money out of their work in some ways, because they could begin to license works and so on. But it's not without these complexities of like, you kind of need the money to
fight the case.
Fight the case, yeah.
Yeah, because I guess even those people that I think there was like people that were complaining to Fortnite about their dancing. It's like, where are you going to get the money to go up against whoever is the developer for Fortnite? Do you know what I mean? It's like that's another thing that it's like, even if the law's there, you still have to fight it in court, which costs money as well. But yeah, it's really interesting. Do you want to tell us a bit about the actual film that we are going to watch later? Or the idea, at least, behind it.
Don't buy it, first of all.
Because it's copywritten.
Yeah, man. Well, it's called As Within, So Without. The name comes from the longer quote, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. And that is, acknowledging that what happens internally is also happening externally. That internal conflict with yourself happens outside as well as in. So the original idea was the American Indian story of the two wolves. You have the good wolf and the evil wolf. Whichever one you feed is the one that comes to the forefront. Kind of like a angel and a demon on your shoulder type of thing. So that was the stimulus for the piece. And then when you see the piece, you're not going to see it today, but when you eventually see it, it's not spoon fed like that, but you can see the
influence,
the different characters, and they move different, they're dressed different.
That makes sense. Was it always? Did you always want it to be a dance film, or was it just an idea that you're like, this could go like on stage, or?
When it was an idea, it was just. It wasn't necessarily a dance film. It was just an idea. Yeah, right. It wasn't necessarily a dance film, but I thought with what was being asked, it could, it would have fit well, which I think it does.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
We'll see. No, you're just saying that, but
I don't know. I think there's a lot more you can do with film. I think that's kind of what I love about dance on stage, and it's what people have said to me that they love. I don't love plays. I haven't gone to a lot, but I don't love them. But the people that like plays, they like it for the same reason that I like dance on stage, in the sense that you have so much restrictions. It's like, how do you be creative with just the stage and lights? Whereas on film, I like that the restrictions are limited. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you do in this film that, like, there's no way you could have done that on stage. Even just some of the like effects, and they're like, it's almost like powder or something. Like, that type of effect you can't really do on stage in the same way. You can't do slow motion on stage. Like, so it's just like, it's so nice to be like, all right, I've seen you do work on stage, and I've seen you play with those restrictions. I understand like how you use costume, how you use light, how you use movement, but then it's like, okay, go crazy. You've got all these other things that you can throw in now. It's like really cool to see, even just editing, like seeing how obviously you didn't do the edit yourself, but like working with an editor and like what things you prioritize, and like even the very beginning where there's a bit where you move on the music, like on the strings in the back. And I'm like, that's such a choreographer decision. Like I know you were like, keep that bit in, because most, like when I see people who film and edit dance who aren't dancers, it's almost like a montagey advert type of feeling. It's like just movement over the music, but like the choice to stay on you, that shot, and to hold that shot a little bit longer when you go like dung dung dung, and it's like Brooke definitely made that decision. Like it just feels like the choreographer went, nah, keep that shot, and I think it works. But yeah, so that's I really like it for that.
Yeah. You just said a minute ago you can't do slow motion on stage. I'm just saying. I'm just pointing that out.
You got to do real slow motion on stage.
You call yourself a popper. You know what I mean?
No, what I meant is you can't do slow motion on stage.
Oh, okay, it's true though.
No, you know what I mean. Like you got to do a backflip in slow motion on stage.
Break scan.
Yeah, true, if anyone can.
But yeah, no, it's funny, like that particular part that you're talking about had to be changed.
No way.
Because it was like, it wasn't accurate, like
it wasn't on the
as accurate as the dance side would want.
Yeah.
It looked nice in the edit, but it was made to be on that part of the music, you know. So we had to make some of those adjustments. I mean, the piece was choreographed. Like if it was on a stage, it would have been 5 minutes long. The way it was choreographed.
So you've choreographed the whole thing as a piece.
Yeah. Not as a piece that can be performed. It still would have been chopped because it's 3 people, right? And I'm 1 person. But the way it was made it would have been 5 minutes, but it got edited down to. Got you. I don't know. It's under 3 minutes.
Yeah, 2:50 or something. Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff it was more like what you're saying about with the advert, where it was like
over the
and then I had to go back and say, you know, we worked together, so we had to compromise with certain things, you know what I mean? So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the idea behind it, and so you worked with a team, as you said. You have a bunch of people that are credited on the film. I mean, they all did an amazing job. How much of that? First of all, like, where did you get the team from? Are they all people you worked with, etc.? Like, where did they come from? But also, how was it working with that? Like, say, for example, the process with the editor. Do you find that hard to like let go of certain things or find a compromise? Or you're like, no, I need it the way I need it? Or are you happy to just be like, all right, like I'll make compromises in certain places?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely compromise. I'm not that precious if it's going to look better.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? If it's going to look better, that's not my job. That's your job. You know what is good. I just need to make sure it aligns with what I see, what I think is good too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when we're bringing these people in, they're being brought in for the expertise, you know. So Christian Belivacqua, he was the director and the animation director.
Okay.
So he was the one that I was going back and forth with on the edit. Ruby Law, she was a scenographer. Emily Lappart is the producer.
Yeah. She's
the one that got in contact with all these people. I didn't know, well, not all these people. I didn't know those two.
Yeah.
Emily knew them. Ian Murray was the director of photography. Dixon B came in the studio. Lauren Scott came in the studio.
Oh, amazing! To help
with the movement, Especially like, you know, Dixon was more. He came in and it was like ideas and choreography.
Yeah.
Lauren was also that, but she was also a body in a room because you know, when you see the film, it's 3 people. Mm-hmm. Or 3 versions of me, so I needed to see those versions in the space
because it's hard to when you're doing it to know what it looks like.
Yeah. So that's the type of stuff that I can do, but it's boring for Hetty because I'm just in the room like this going,
just twitching in the side like, that looked good. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you guys, everyone that was involved, man. Appreciate
And you've been
you
working with
guys.
Dixon since I've known you, but way before I've known you, right?
2010, I would say. That's
Oh,
when
really?
I started working with him.
But
I
as
knew
in,
him
like, you've been
before then.
friends and, like...
Well, we wasn't really friends before that.
Oh, really? Before, like, 2010?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe
not
I'm
really, 'cause
confusing.
he was in IP, you
Yeah.
know, and we was in, you know, we smoked them at Jump Off, and then.
Whoop.
But no, I knew him. I just.
Oh, so, like, the kind of partnership of Brooke and Dixon was only, like, 2010-ish onwards?
I think it was 2010 because it was like we jammed at Cafe de Paris. What was the name of the event? Flipping heck, I can't remember the name of the event, but it was in January. I know that. We jammed for the first time together, and then I don't know why we're talking about this, but then like a couple weeks later, he was like, "We should do Juice to Boo."
Ah.
And then at that time, I was like, "You sure?" Because them times Dixon, well, not that he's not now, but he was like, you know. And then that's our partnership.
Sick. Okay, yeah, because the first Just About UK was 2011. So it's probably that.
Maybe I got it
Like
wrong
he's
then.
probably saying in
2011.
2010 for
No,
next year.
It's 2011 then.
Oh, okay.
The event I think was in 2010.
Yeah,
that I
so he
saw
was
him
talking
at,
about let's
and
do it
then-
next year.
Yeah, but it was like a couple months after.
Oh, mad.
Something like that. Yeah, a long time ago. I'm not exact, but yeah, I knew
Yeah.
of him for a while, but
Okay.
we weren't really friends before that.
Right. But I mean, we're talking about 2010 as if like, oh yeah, that's not that long ago, but it's 14,
Yeah.
almost 15 years ago. You guys have been working together, so you find that, like, I guess, and I'm also like speaking from my experiences, like I would like to have someone like who my Dixon would be in the studio with me, because I need a friend that's known me for a long time to go like, that sucks if it sucks, or you know what I mean, or like tell me the real, because if you don't know someone, they might be trying to be polite with you, etc. Like, do you find you get that with Dixon more, just like,
for
just
sure.
tell me how it is? And
I mean, his personality's like that anyway.
True.
But he doesn't want his name attached to things that are not going to be good either.
right.
There's been times where he's done stuff and he's not put his name on it because it's not been up
With
to
you?
par. Not
Oh,
to me, but,
yeah, in general.
which is good though. Like if people are not on
Yeah.
it the way he's on it, because he's on it,
Yeah.
you know, you want your work to be good. So yeah, it's definitely useful because he's well. I was just about to say he's easy to work with. He was easy to work with for this. So it's not always been easy to work with. But yeah, he'll definitely say like he'll just say I don't like that idea like that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And it wasn't like he was the choreographer. It was just we're in the space together. So if I don't like his ideas, I'm going to say the same
Sure.
thing. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's good. And Hetty, is there things that you, like, I've been in the studio with Brooke like quite a few times on different projects, or like even just been around you as a dancer, I've been around other choreographers. Is there stuff from your perspective that like maybe you've observed, or things that maybe we take for granted that you find interesting about a choreographer in general, but also Brooke, like about them creating, or about how these things happen that you were like, oh, that's interesting, that maybe we've never even looked at?
Yeah, like I think one of the things, I mean, there's quite a lot of things. I think one of the things that it was really interesting to me is just the kind of tracking from like when something begins. So like I arrived in the studio the first time that Brooke was in the studio, but like of course there's all this like pre-work of like the idea and the application, and like so I'm interested in like when does the thing begin to emerge. And then it was really interesting watching Brooke in the studio because I felt like it was really like quick that the kind of movement came together and became set, and it was like partly seemed to me because there was this really strong concept and theme, and that everything kind of hung around that. So there was, something about the kind of speed at which the material was generated. And I remember that one of the sessions with Lauren, it was like, I just felt like the speed of working was like so kind of quick. And I was like really amazed by how quickly like the material was being generated. And I think I said to you afterwards, like it was so speedy, and you were kind of like, that's so normal, you know?
Like who, me?
I think it's like if you think about the background, it's like you go rehearsals 7 till 10, you know what I mean? You need to get the show done in a couple rehearsals sometimes, or it might be like literally you're outside looking in the reflection of a shop window, you know, you got to get it done.
Yeah.
So in terms of, being an underground street dancer, it's like all this time that we have for R&Ds and all of that, like we're just like,
We never had
do
that.
it in 2 hours. chill for the rest of the day. No, I don't really do that, but you know, we know how to get the work done quickly if need be, but not to say like it was done because it needed to be refined, it got changed, you know. So, but the movement is I guess the easiest part.
It was interesting, like as well, that thing of like the kind of layering of all the different components. So like the theme, the different characterization, the music, and then to go into the filming, and then all of that kind of technical work as well. Like there was something really interesting to me about how those different layers kind of evolved through the process, especially in relation to this question of like, when does it start to appear? Because it felt like from the very beginning to the final film, like there was, although like some things really remain the same, there was also like a huge kind of evolution in a way, in terms of like from the very beginning idea to this like very kind of complex, rich aesthetic. I don't want to say too much about the film, but so yeah, I found that also very intriguing and quite in a way specific to this practice and this film, because of the way that you were working with your collaborators in the kind of actual filming moment and the animation.
What would you say? I mean, obviously you can't explain your entire choreographic process now, but like if you have to kind of like simplify it, are you a type of person that, for example, you'll like, you know, there's some people that will write stuff down, there's some people that will just get up and like create moves and be like, all right, that's not working, more moves, like that's not working, or, you know, like how do you go about like, you know, to get to that point of like, there's something in your head, the two wolves, all these things that are very abstract, that now we have a film or we have like movement in the space. How do you start to get that out of your specific head?
So you're saying once I've got the idea, yeah?
Yeah, let's say once you're in the studio and I'm like, all right, we've got the idea, you've got the concept.
Okay.
Now make something. Like, what's your first port of call to make?
Well, before I'm in the studio, because I've made the music for the piece, a lot of that is I'm making music for what I can see in my head. So the movement is done to a degree in my head.
So you have the finished product in your head?
Not finished, to a degree.
Okay.
So, because I'm trying to make the music for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I need to know why I'm doing this with the music. Yeah. So there's a structure, like there's this part, then because I'm changing characters, the music needs to change. So there's a, it's not blank once I'm in the studio.
So is it more of like a loose structure? Like this will be intro, but I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll be introing exactly, kind of.
Exactly.
Right.
But because obviously, you know, with the music, as I'm going back and forth, I have quite a lot of time to think, because I'm sitting down thinking, as in I'm not moving around.
Right.
So there's not a lot, but I wouldn't say it's bare, but it's not too much done. But anyway, once I get into the studio, a mix of what you're saying, notepad, writing down ideas. Half of it I can't even understand when I look back at it. You know, like when me and Lauren was in the studio, we was just freestyling for I don't know how long, just filming it, you know what I mean, just going, doing whatever, and then like attaching little themes.
Freestyling in certain sections of the music?
No, because the music was not done then. It was just like a loop of the general music. And it was just like, you know, we was doing like 6-minute solos and but just like picking out like if I'm dancing, she'd be like, I like that bit that you did. When she's dancing, I'm like, yeah, that part was nice, write it down. Or we're filming it anyway, but
like pulling out those moments.
Yeah. So there's the freestyle element. And then there's just sitting down sometimes and just thinking, as we said before, sometimes that works for me. I think it always works for me, but just not for the entire piece. So a mix. It's not like set like a certain way to do it. Just depends on what the vibe is.
Okay. And was that because you didn't always make the music for all your pieces? So was it similar before you were making the music? You just listen to the music and figure it out before you got into the studio?
Yeah.
So it's like the same process, but
same sort of process. I think just making it gives you more time to think and
more freedom within it, I guess.
Yeah, more time to, you know, because if it's someone else's music, if it's a set song, you just got what you've got and that's it, and you need to align the idea with the music. Whereas when the music's being made from scratch, you can align the music with the dance, and you can align the movement with the music. So that's why I like going back and forth. I don't like to just have the music done, because I said it was just a loop, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, yeah.
Yeah, so loop, go in the studio, different ideas, adjust the music, go back, you know what I mean? So it's a lot of work, and in a way it's harder, but it's also easier.
Yeah, I guess because it's also like I think shows like a growth from, you know, you're talking about the street dance background, but our whole thing that we've always, it's just like you make the track, even when it was edited together with loads of different songs, it's like you have the track at the beginning of the rehearsal process, just come in, bang out all the routine. So I think that's like that must be something you've learned along the journey, is to like, all right, don't finish the music. Even if I have the freedom to do it, it's like, still don't finish it and then get in the studio, like the back and forth. Because it's always the case that, you know, I think it's a Mike Tyson quote that's like, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. It's like everyone has a plan until they get in the studio. You know, it's like, yeah, no, it's going to look like this, and you get in, you're like, it's not working, or like, you know. So I think it's good to be able to go back, change your music, get back in, and like, yeah. Yeah,
no, for sure. It's funny because Hetty said that we were working fast, and I don't think we was working that fast.
You're like, that's the slowest process ever.
I'm not getting it done, man. What's going on? But yeah, I felt like there was a lot to get done, because as I said, the film is 5 minutes in length, right, but it's 5 minutes in length with 3 characters. So
that's a lot of...
The characters are not there for the whole time, but it's like over 10 minutes worth of material. Wow. We was working quick, but it was like, I need to do this character and that character and that character, dancing differently as well, not just the same movement. So yeah, man. But yeah, I like I don't try to keep it the same. I like to keep each project different amount of people, different idea. Some of the music's easier than other music, you know. So yeah.
Interesting. And Hetty, I don't know, again, if this is like what is covered in your research, so tell me if it's not something you research, but like, is there certain things about like the stuff that Brooke is describing, or the other choreographers that you've worked with, is there certain things that certain people will do, or is there certain ways that like certain type of thinkers will create, or is there some link between the way we create and the way we think, or, you know, what does it say about us as creatives, you know?
That's a great question. I just want to mention the other 2 artists.
Yes, please.
Names. So Anjana Bala is one of the artists whose piece is already released on Sadler's Wells digital stage, called Optics. And Kat Hawkins is the other artist who we worked with. So I just wanted to mention them. Kat's piece will be available soon as well. I don't know if I can answer your question directly, but I did find it very interesting, the different processes and the different ways that people work. I guess kind of thinking of things across each of them, one thing that really struck me is like you've kind of already mentioned, but like the role of relationships in collaboration, and the kind of friendships within collaborations, and the way that those relationships within the studio seem so kind of integral to the work being formed. But the kind of structural like way that choreography emerges was quite different in each practice. I mean, not wildly different, but like just the way that, you know, like how much material people came to the studio with already, or like whether they had a kind of strong narrative from the beginning, or whether they were working in a more kind of emergent way. Like that did differ a bit across the different pieces that we looked at, I think. But there were definitely also themes. And I think definitely the kind of friendship, working with people, the trust of collaborators came out quite strongly, which is interesting to me also in terms of ownership, because I think, you know, like you kind of alluded to before, like ownership can often operate within quite tight communities in a particular way, and there's a really interesting book by someone called Harmon called Perpetual Motion that talks a lot about this, about the kind of role of community in ownership, and then what happens when dancers move out of those communities. And so I think seeing those kinds of relationships and the way that people work with people that they had kind of worked with before or knew or friends with, or if they weren't, then some of the work was perhaps around building those kinds of relationships. So I didn't really answer your question.
No,
it was just things that were emerging.
No, I think that's very interesting, because it's like, I mean, I don't know if, like, if you would say this, but tell me if you would. But like, I feel like creating is like really vulnerable. Like, I find that so much that it's like, I feel like and this is also speaking about myself as well, but like, you know, you put something out to the room and you're like, is this dumb? Like, until you say it out loud and you're like, I have an idea, and you need to have that, the trust of the room that it's like, some of these ideas might be stupid or they might be rubbish, but like, I need to put them out and try them, because either they might not be, they might be brilliant, but they also might be moldable, and it might be like, okay, what you're saying is not really kind of connecting, but we can make it into something. And if that's like, if I'm assisting you as a choreographer, like, even if I don't like the thing that you come up with, I'm like, I don't like it, but what about if we made it like this? Or I could put, you know, rather than you keeping it in your head. So I think you also have to have a level of trust with everyone in the room that, look, I'm just going to be vulnerable. Like, don't make fun of me, or, you know, don't like, you know, shut me down if you don't like the idea, etc. And I think when you do have those people that you don't feel comfortable around, you can't trust, it changes the whole, not only process, but the piece. It's like, it's going to be something different. Like, you working with Dixon, you're going to create something way different than working with an assistant who you've never met before. And just, even if they're brilliant, like, could be one of the best choreographers in the world, but if you've never met them before, it's like, it's a whole different process, no?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Going back to Dixon, because we was, you know, the camera was on, so we're working on stuff, dancing, and then we just start talking, but the camera's still on. It's like 25 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, like you're recording for your own records.
Yeah, but it's just being left on. I'm not like, we're not thinking the camera, so we're just talking and we're just saying stuff to each other. And I can't remember, is it me or him? But like, he might say an idea and then he'll just be, oh, that's whack.
Yeah,
not in those words, but he's like shutting himself down.
It.
But we're able to just say something, say this, say that, and sometimes it just you know, just in the air. And then sometimes it's like we can work on an idea and agree on, you know, what we think is good. But yeah, it's different, man. I mean, for me, I like to have I guess most people are like that. I like to have my people in the room with me. Do you know what I mean? Like my cousin or whatever, she didn't work on this one, but it's easy to work with her. Even though when we've been in the studio together, it's been quite we haven't had a lot of time, but it's easy. You know what I mean? She's just like, she's my little cousin.
Is that Robia now?
Yeah.
You have so many talented family members, it could be could be anyone.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Yeah. Interesting. And so the other two artists that you had on the project, like, you saw similar types of things where they had people they trusted in the studio and worked with them on that way?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know how much to say about those.
Sure. You don't want to like give away their entire process.
Also because, I don't want to kind of speak for those artists in terms of how, you know, like, it feels a bit complicated, but I guess just kind of generally speaking, and also thinking about other work that I've kind of done, like, I think there is something really interesting about like trust, relationship, community, and friendship in these collaborative processes, and that kind of underpins to some extent the way that then ownership might function in those spaces. Well, I think that, I mean, I'm totally hypothesizing here and not drawing on specific kind of observations, but I'm just thinking about, like, you know, whether a collaborative process with someone who you've worked with for a long time, for example, you might have a less, you might have a kind of implicit understanding of, like, that you can be quite relaxed, say, about ownership agreements, say. Whereas, like, if you're working with someone for the first time, there's maybe, like, a need to draw kind of clearer boundaries or get on the same page about, like, how you're thinking about the contributions that you both make, but also, like, what happens when it goes out into the world. But yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, I'm kind of just thinking that through. It's not that I've got like specific kind of examples from this project to...
Well, I mean, you could even talk about Brooks. Like, I don't know how you would feel about that, say with Lauren, for example. So it's like you had her in a body in a space, but obviously for people that know Lauren, like, she's also a fantastic mind and a mover herself. So I mean, I can't imagine Lauren being in the room literally just as a body. Like, I'm sure even if she was asked to be, she'd contribute something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did say that as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't, her role was a body as well.
Sure. Yeah.
She definitely, you know, came up with some good ideas. But yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know her like I know Dixon. I haven't known her for, that long, but we've done bits and pieces together. That's why I asked her to come in the room. But yeah, it's like being comfortable and having someone who wants the work to be 10 out of 10.
The best it can be,
You know what I mean? Because I did work with her on another project, and she, in terms of that side of things, it was just like, you don't need to worry about her being late.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about her not giving 100%. Like if she says I'm tired or I'm sick or whatever, she really means it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So easy to work with. But yeah, just touching on going back to what you said about working with other people. So yeah, like we need to work with other people sometimes. So sometimes it ain't gonna work.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
We need to. It's better than staying still and just doing the same thing. Like even if 100%. It's like you have your group or your main bulk of people where everybody knows the culture of the way the room works, and then you bring in other people, might not work. Bringing someone else, boom, takes it to another level. Being open-minded and open, not just open-minded, just being open to work with other people. But I think, for me, it's like you have a 50% of what you're used to, or 75%, and then try to make because I don't want my work to be the same.
But so, say with someone like Lauren, how do you see this idea of ownership with it? So, for example, like there's probably stuff that remains in the thing that Lauren had a hand in or contributed. And anyone that's worked with any choreographers or choreographed has experienced this, where it might be something where, like with Lauren, it sounds like a very collaborative process where you were working together and building stuff. I've also been a part of projects where the choreographer literally says, you two go over there and make up 2 8s and then come back, but then my name isn't there as assistant choreographer. My name is, it's just like and I'm looking at the piece when it's being performed and I haven't been asked to come back, and I'm like, but I made up that section. Do you know what I mean? So then it's like, now, like, how do you see, let's say, the idea of ownership and where where that's shared or where that isn't? Or do you, as someone in a process with a choreographer, are you kind of signing away your brain, I guess, to like, if you contribute this idea, it's going under my name. That's up to you whether you want to contribute or not.
I mean, I think Hetty said it. Is one of the things is acknowledgement. When you see the film, you'll see her name there.
Yeah.
And we're talking about her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tricky one because we're in the studio to make a piece. So whatever your agreement is with that person, it's like whatever work you create,
it's going in the piece.
The piece is owns that. I did a work with a spoken word artist, and I said to him, because he's in the piece. But if he's not in the piece, we need to use those words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I told him
you can't take them with you.
Yeah. We're not changing the whole piece if you're having a day off. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Just more like agreeing it. At the
beginning. Being transparent about it. But yeah, you should definitely, if you see your work on stage and you're not in the credits or anything like that ain't right.
I mean, in my specific, I'm talking about like an arm movement or something. But yeah, I hear I've heard a lot of cases where it's been worse than that. And I think it does happen a lot that it's like choreographers in the space are just like, go over there and make up 3 minutes of material. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, but I'm just credited as a dancer,
It's so simple though. Just credit
write,
them.
Yeah.
You're still the director or the main choreographer, whatever you're going to be.
Just add a credit.
Easy peasy, lemon.
Yeah,
easy.
But then I guess also, does it then open up the conversation of, if the choreographer's like, but I'll credit you as assistant choreographer, then you're like, well, now let's look at my fees. Do you know what I mean? If you've been paid as a dancer, I ended up doing
depends
more.
on what it is though, because a role of a choreographer in a street dance crew background like we come from is the choreographer comes in and teaches you the choreography and you do it.
Yeah.
But choreography is also being in the space and you being you, and the choreographer saying, I like that, do this, do that.
Yeah.
So it depends on you know what I mean. I just think we should just have, the dancer should have the same amount of respect as the choreographer and the director and the music producer.
Yeah.
Not just, oh, they're the dancers, they're last in line. And with that, you give them the credit. If they're doing more work than the other dancers, I don't know, call them dance captain or or whatever.
Give them a different credit. Because I mean, you can definitely speak to the music side of things, but like, if you have Pharrell making a beat with like live instrument players, he's directing them in sense of what, but he's not literally saying play this note, then this note, then this note, right? Like he's getting them to play certain things and then go, right, we're going to take that riff and we're going to repeat it and we're going to put it on this beat. Like, is that kind of how it works?
I mean, I guess they all work differently. But
right, sorry.
He would, I don't know about him, but you see some people, if they can't play the guitar, but they're like, yeah, go,
yeah,
you know.
So it's the similar thing as a choreographer, as like a beat. Like, yes, Pharrell made the beat, but then there's the saxophone player who contributed that riff or whatever. Yeah. It's not like Pharrell literally played every instrument, or whoever, you know, played every instrument, but it's the same, I guess, as a choreographer. It's like you're the one that pulls the vision together, regardless of who made up the moves, I guess. What are you thinking about the conversation we're having?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think also that role, like what that means to be a choreographer, might also differ a little bit depending on the context, in terms of like control or how much they generate the material or how much they work in a kind of improvisational way with the dancers or set kind of structures. So yeah, it kind of has particular connotations in a way of like they made up the movement, but I think in lots of practices like it is more collaborative. I mean, it seems, I think, as you say, like the important thing is to kind of be clear about what contributions people have made and acknowledge people. But I do think it's interesting, this question of like what it actually means to be the choreographer, like what it implies versus what the practice actually kind of is in a way in terms of ownership and creation.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff, like for example, like, you know, we're saying about coming from the street dance background, it's like our understanding of choreography or like anything that we've learned is just either people have told us or it's like you just kind of assume, you go, choreography is the one that makes the stuff up. Whereas I guess with like classical backgrounds and stuff where there's a lot more, I don't know what the right word is for it, but things have been passed down a lot more institutionally. In like, you know what I mean? Like there's ballet school, there's contemporary school, whereas like hip hop schools are like still very new even now. So we don't necessarily come from a background of people who know what the word choreographer is. Like we're just going, I guess it's this. Whereas like maybe like if you look at contemporary, maybe they understand, okay, this is kind of the realm of a choreographer and I might ask you to do certain things, I might ask you to do certain things, but my job is to make the final decision on it. So yeah, it might be harder for, like some of the things that we've assumed might be wrong, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And so we might be getting outraged at things that we shouldn't be getting outraged about. So you said also that I don't know if you said it before the podcast started, but that your research is still ongoing now that the film is going to be out and now that it's done being made. So what's this part about, basically?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. So we're still really in the process of kind of analysing everything that we've...
Yeah.
So that work is ongoing. But we're really also interested to see how these films kind of meet the world and, you know, how they're shared, like how they're picked up, whether anyone bites anything. And like what their circulation looks like and how they relate to different platforms and social media and things like that. So there's a kind of continuation in terms of observing what happens to them now they're, or once they're out in the world. And that continues my kind of interest, I guess, in this question of like the very beginning of something to its circulation and potential kind of re-embodiment in different ways. So we'll just be keeping an eye, I guess, as well as working on still the kind of development of the findings and the different outputs that I mentioned as well. Yeah,
I think it's really interesting how dance is consumed, like a film like this is consumed. Because like, say for me, it's like I watched it the first time on my phone, right? And it's like watching it, it's almost like, and also me having worked behind the camera, I'm like, it's such a shame to watch this on my phone and I have to go and put it on the TV and watch it properly. Because it's like, there's a whole thing about the way people consume things and versus the way it's meant to be consumed as well, especially with digital work, because with theatre, you can really control how people see it. You can, you know, the way the seats are, even to the extent of like whether you let people in during the piece, in the interval, like all of these little bits you can control. When it's digital, it's like, you don't know, like I could say, oh, I love your film. And it's like, I watched it like this while I was like, yeah, just watching it, not paying attention. And it's like, you can't control that of how people are going to be, consuming it. And I think one thing that is really interesting with the stuff of like dance on screen is like the way social media, I think, has evolved is like, so that you have to keep people's attention with every second. And like, you know, you see these YouTube videos and stuff where everything is like in your face and exciting. And it's like, it's a whole type of content. Whereas like a dance film is not meant to be built like that. Like you want moments of stillness. You want moments of like dips and like a structure to it. You don't want to have to keep everyone's entertainment, but it keeps everyone's attention. But if you know they might be watching it on the bus, you're like, I might be tempted to be like, oh, well, cut this long bit out because they're not going to pay attention or whatever. But do you think it like, did that play in your mind at all of like how people are going to be consuming it when you were creating it, or are you just thinking about the piece?
No, I didn't think about that.
Okay.
I just want the work to be quality, you know, but I think the director must have done because he cut it down, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
It's meant to be 5 minutes and he's like, 3 minutes.
3 minutes is enough, yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know if he thought of it like that, but I mean, yeah, we can't control it, right? And then it's like, not that there's anything wrong with what people are doing on social media, but it's so instant. It's like, I don't know, McDonald's, you know what I mean? It tastes good, but you know, sometimes it's you need more depth in
100%.
Not sometimes, a lot of the time, more depth is needed. You know,
and I think there is an art to social media content, it's in the same way that there's like an art to fast food. It's like, you know, you can be like, well, I'm really impressed by this fast food restaurant, you know, but at the end of the day, like it's not healthy, good food for you. It's like, you can still appreciate how it's the same with like pop music or whatever. Like it might be cheaper kind of song making, but it's still an art to like a song that goes viral or is number one on all the hits. It might not be a Kendrick Lamar album, but I mean, we're basically talking about Drake now, but but you know what I mean? It's like there's you can still appreciate that art. But yeah, I think I agree with you where it's like it is nice. And I like that sometimes. And I have to force myself to like consume things in the right way sometimes. Because my tendency is to just watch a film on my phone. But it's like, no, do it like watch it in the way it's supposed to be. Because it changed my experience of it, which is what this is all about. Is like, I want to watch it for me. It's not doing like, obviously this I was watching like, you know, because I knew we were doing the pod and stuff. But usually I'm not watching that for you. Like I'm watching because I want to watch it. So why not consume it in the way that's, you know, the best for you?
My one of my friends said, because you know you can obviously, if you listen to a voice note, you can speed it up however fast you want. He was like, yeah, I just watch films on 1.5 speed. I was like, come on, bro, that's too much. A film
is wild.
But not a film. He watches films like that.
I've heard
that's
people
too much, man.
that do that. All right. So first of all, I think doing it on voice notes, I think that's disrespectful. I do it, but I think it's disrespectful. It's like,
I do it for sure.
Do you,
I ain't got time.
I did it about 10 minutes ago, but no, but like, I think it's like, yeah, I spoke to you in the speed that I wanted you to hear me. Don't speed me up. I've heard people that do it with podcasts, which I think is wild. If you've got this on 1.5 or 2 speed, put it back to normal. But I think that's wild. But a film is insane.
It's different though, isn't it? Yeah.
That's
when he
insane.
said, because I was like, I didn't know people. I actually didn't know people do that. Like, and you're meant to enjoy it, bro.
Yeah.
Don't watch the film on one. I don't know if
he's basically watching the trailer.
Boy, that's too much. And he's a big man as well. I'm not saying your name. You're a big man, bro. Come on, man.
He's like, I got stuff to do, man. I ain't got time in my schedule for a 2-hour movie.
I hear that though. I hear that.
That is crazy though. I can't imagine if someone watched your film.
That's what I'm saying, bro. That's disrespectful, man.
Yeah, you spent all that time on one bit and they're like, it just skips past.
Music sounding all dead. Like.
Yeah, I forgot about the sound as well. No, that's a terrible idea. That's really interesting. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I feel like it's hard for me to ask questions about process because I feel like I know it. Like I know your process and I know choreographic processes quite well, if that makes sense. Or at least I feel like I do. But with the research that you're doing, it's like super, I mean, the concept of the research is new to me, let alone the actual research that you're doing. So in terms of like the academic stuff, and this is something, like I said, I teach at university and I've had to encounter some of the more academic framing of things, and the way it's done is still super new to me. But what do you see, like, let's say for us who are like, come from a street dance background, we just kind of like, I mean, no, you studied, didn't you, at Bird? But like for the most part, I feel like you've made your career kind of off your own back. Like you've had help, you've had teachers, but you've kind of just been like, all right, I want to learn popping, I want to learn locking, I want to learn to be a choreographer. And you just kind of did it, right? Like you, for the majority, there might be certain parts. But like say with this academic research, the way that academia is involved with art, and especially like hip hop artists, what do you think is like the benefit of it? And what is like, is there stuff that we're not realizing about academia that could help us more? Like, is there something that's like, you did all that work on popping, but if you just went and read this research paper, you would have learned, you know what I mean? As opposed to going and ciphering. Like, is there something that we could be incorporating that would help us more?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. It's a really interesting one. There was something I wanted to mention that relates to this, which is, I mean, I mentioned already, I think briefly, that there's loads of writing about dance and copyright, and particularly this kind of distinction between works and social dances and routines in US copyright law. In terms of UK copyright law, I just wanted to mention Charlotte Waelde's work, and Charlotte's an intellectual property professor of IP, but she's based at the Centre for Dance Research, so she specialises on dance IP, and in particular in the UK context. There are other people also doing that work, but I just wanted to mention her work in case it's interesting for people listening to know a bit more about dance and copyright, because she's done quite a lot of work in that area. So I guess that's one example of how, if you're interested in these kinds of issues, then there is work out there. There's lots of other people who I could mention, but it would take a long time. And like I really like this question, like how can academia kind of inform practice? And I think, so the kinds of philosophical questions that I'm interested in, I often find that when I have kind of mentioned them to artists, they're kind of like, oh, I kind of think about this as well, but in different terms. So like one of the things that I hope in this project is through having the conversations that might kind of, I guess, just help, like, I don't know, like shift a bit someone's thinking, or like maybe think in a slightly different direction about the practice. But like, that's only really because I'm so interested in it. It's like, I want, other people to find this interesting, but like, I don't kind of assume that like practice needs my research, I don't think like it kind of needs the research we're doing necessarily, but I hope that it can help. And I think that having spent a lot of time thinking about ownership and about like ownership specifically online, I do hope that we can create something that might be useful for people in a kind of practical way, like things to think about, and linking to advice about copyright or about agreements, or there is quite a lot out there already. So hopefully just a kind of way to kind of pull things together and say, look, these are resources that might be useful. These are things that might come up once you put stuff out online, and like, thinking through the kind of potential ways that it might be used. But I think that's a bit different, I think, to what you're asking, which is like the actual like practice of moving, say. And I don't know that, I don't feel like there's like a like problem that we need to fix there. But like, I just hope that there can be a kind of interesting dialogue, I guess, or kind of, like maybe spark interest in people.
Yeah, I think the hard thing with art in institutional spaces is like there's sometimes as soon as you like institutionalize something and in order to teach it and like structure it and formulate it, there's something that you lose from that. Like, it's actually really interesting for me because one of the modules that I teach at the University of East London is screen dance, right? And just the concept of dance on screen in general. And it's quite an open module for us to work through. But I think the hard thing that I've found, and I think this year, I've had input in the module, but like this year I'm module leading, and before I was just teaching on the module. And one of my things when I was sitting down to make the module is like, what is it that I want them to learn? Because it's like, I don't want to tell them what to be creative about or how to be creative or how to do the process, but I still need to teach them something. So it's like, what is it exactly that I'm teaching here? Because, and this is what I'm trying my best to communicate to the students as well, is like, I'm not going to mark you down if I think like if something didn't work or it doesn't look bad, because that's my personal subjective opinion. And that's something that's really hard when you're trying to mark work, but there's a subjective outcome in a way. It's like, was that edit too rushed, or did you want it to be fast paced? It's kind of subjective. And like I said to them, it's like, what I'll try my best to do is look at your ability and competency to like use the tools to create something, even if I hate the thing that you created, but you knew what you were doing. If I think you made mistakes or it wasn't, and especially if I've seen you work in class and stuff like that, and it's like it's a really difficult thing, I think, to like to take art and put it into an educational or an academic thing without losing some magic. Because sometimes there's some stuff that people make and it's like, it is a mistake and it is because of a lack of knowledge and it is because they've done things incorrectly, but that's how lock-in got created. Do you know what I mean? Like, for the most part, I don't know if I'm speaking wrong there, but it's like
something like that.
Yeah, he was kind of trying to do something, got it wrong, if I'm simplifying, made a whole thing that we all fell in love with, right? Or it's like, there's certain dancers that it's like, your technique's not like, I mean, Salah was not the most proficient, technical, clean popper, but he changed the landscape of popping, in my opinion. So it's like, I think sometimes there's a magic to someone, in air quotes, academically speaking, getting something wrong. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what I find difficult in the university setting, that it's like, I see why we're marking them down, or I see why they failed, or I see why they got this thing wrong. But in the real world, this might succeed. And how are we trying to tell them that doesn't work when it could work? Does it make sense? Yeah, definitely.
And I think, the kind of judgment of artistic work is really complicated.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So yeah, I mean, I really agree with that. I think from like a research perspective, I mean, I can only really speak about my own position on this, I guess. And I'm just thinking it through now, but I feel as though this project came about because there were these kinds of new forms emerging through the pandemic, and they seemed to be kind of challenging, to some extent, like existing mechanisms for ownership. So I was motivated by the idea that if I was able to spend time looking at this across contexts, I might be able to kind of draw together enough thinking to help to kind of feed back into the sector. So there is a sense, and I do hope that is the case, that there's a sense that like by dedicating time to kind of looking at work when other people are dedicating their time to making the work, that there is a really important role there, and that it can kind of have a reciprocal relationship with practice. But I do think that it's important that it doesn't try to tell people how to do what they're doing. And I think that maybe relates a bit to what you're saying about the screen dance work. It's like, how can you kind of share knowledge and share resources around this kind of work without saying, well, this is how you make work, or this is how you make good work, or this is how you ought to do things. So I think I recognize that treading that line and that kind of tension and complexity for sure.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, oh God, there's so many things that like I would love to know about the research, but that's the point of us going and reading your research. And also it's not finished yet. But maybe we should set up the film. And sorry, Brooke, we're going to show everyone the film.
Didn't know you was going to do that, damn it.
We're good actors. So yeah, is there any kind of, let's say if someone tuned in right now, can you guys, between the two of you, set up the film for people? If let's say they just turn on the podcast now, this is the time code that they skip straight to. What are they about to watch? What's the concept? How did it come about? And then we'll show the film for these lovely people at home who are watching it full screened on their TV, not on their phone, not on the bus, with popcorn.
You're gonna go first this time. I went first last time. Or you want me to
just
go
like the broader
first?
context?
Yeah.
I can go first if you want.
You go first.
All right.
Yeah.
So guys, you're about to watch. You're about to watch a short dance film called As Within, So Without. It's a concept that I came up with. It's directed by Christian Belavacqua. Ruby Law was a part of it. Emily Lappart was a part of it. Dixon and B was a part of it. Lauren Scott, Ian Murray, and some other people. There's a lot. You'll see them at the end. What else can I say about it? You have to watch the podcast because we've been talking about it. Yeah.
Do you have something you hope people will take away from this or keep in mind when they watch it?
I just hope that you guys can relate to it somehow. It's not a once upon a time happy ever after piece. If it resonates with you some way, somehow, great. If you feel something, that's great because it's art. We're meant to feel it. If you don't, you're a hater. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
And is there, let's say for the research side of things, if the kind people at home feel like helping and leaving some comments, is there stuff that we could get feedback on from people that have watched the film that you might be interested in?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious about any responses to the film, I guess. Also, if it ends up influencing or informing any of your future work, that would be a very interesting thing to know about. If you share it in particular ways, that would also be really interesting. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Lovely. All right. Well, guys, thank you for tuning into the podcast. Thank you both for being here to talk about the work. Thank you for making it. Thank you for commissioning it. And yeah, if you stay tuned after this, you're going to be able to watch the film in full. So please stay, watch it, leave comments, Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you find your comments. I'll pass them on to these guys and let us know what you think of the film. And we will leave some links in the description where you might want to send people to for your research for more of Brooke's work, etc. But if you don't know Brooke, you should. And last question, Brooke, are you going to come back to the popping scene anytime soon?
This month.
Yeah? No, you're just saying that. It's December.
This month.
Where?
Somewhere.
Okay. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Enjoy the film.